breathe. Try to figure out why are you afraid? What does that mean? And then try to just be and let not what you're afraid of define the present that you hope to be in when you go do what you're afraid of.
Keanu Reeves, known for his humble and authentic demeanor, has become a vocal critic of Hollywood's hypocrisy, particularly its woke culture. He has openly challenged the industry's exploitative practices and manipulation of narratives, exposing how powerful elites control both the media and public perception.
I never forgot that. 3 years later, this name, ping! Huh.
Busted chicken hawking.
That one's sick. This one, bing! Busted.
Yeah.
Huh. They swept that up. That's what I call, to me, Hollywood's a mafia. It's a big, dark mafia.
Yeah, it is.
And then what happens is, I remember one of them, it was like, the mobsters come, they're like, we understand. Not mobsters like Italian.
Right.
Whatever,
You're talking
whatever
about,
gang you want to
the
call it.
attorneys, yeah.
Right? And they come along like, listen, you sign this, you do some movies there, we'll put this all on the table, we got enough money to make this go away. Ping, it's gone. No one ever brings it up. No one ever brings it up with this person.
Reeves' refusal to conform to Hollywood's expectations and his outspoken nature have led to backlash, with some speculating that he has been subtly blacklisted or sidelined by the industry. Despite being a beloved figure, Reeves' criticism of Hollywood's dark side has made him a target, proving that speaking the truth can come with significant risks.
I'm 59, so I'm thinking about death all the time.
Still very young.
I'm young old. I mean, I think thinking about death is good. Hopefully it sensitizes to an appreciation of the breath we have and the relationships that we have the potential to have.
Aspiring actors often enter Hollywood with dreams of stardom, only to be met with the harsh reality of exploitation by those in power. High-ranking executives, producers, and influential figures often lure young talent with promises of success and fame, only to manipulate and mistreat them behind the scenes. These powerful individuals create an illusion of a bright future, using it as bait to exploit the ambitions of new actors.
I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover.
I don't know, no, because if you're a lover, you got to be a fighter.
How so?
Because if you don't fight for your love, what kind of love do you have? No, I'm kidding.
The industry's obsession with maintaining a perfect public persona means that many of its darker aspects are never revealed. The reality is that Hollywood's power brokers often operate with little regard for the well-being of those they work with, and the industry's true nature is far less glamorous than it appears on the surface. This discrepancy between appearance and reality keeps the public unaware of the systemic issues within Hollywood, allowing the same harmful practices to continue unchecked.
Then the real Hollywood came. And I'll tell you what, I'll let you in on a little something, but I'm not going to drop names.
Okay.
But I'll never forget, these are black producers, a guy named Kevin Brown and Andre Brown, and he was later on 30 Rock, but they would come to us and they would tell us about vanity and losing your mind in Hollywood and be careful. And they came back from Hollywood to try and expand us. And they sat us down, and they're like, you ain't gonna believe what we saw. And like, what'd you see? And they said, we saw so-and-so, huge name, so-and-so, huge name.
The power dynamics in Hollywood make it nearly impossible for newcomers to speak out against such mistreatment, as doing so could jeopardize their careers. This cycle perpetuates a toxic environment where the most vulnerable are the most exploited. The industry's lack of transparency and accountability means that many of these wrongdoings are never brought to light, allowing the powerful to continue their manipulative practices without consequence.
This actor exposes how Hollywood really is. Listen closely.
With actors, you're in a vulnerable situation. You know, you're in a vulnerable place. You're trying to get a job, and there's people who could use that power to abuse it. I was a young actor. Yeah, I was asked to go to a hotel room of a director. It was a famous director, and I didn't think anything weird by it because I never think it had ever happened to me. And so I went, and he was in his robe. I still didn't think it was weird. Well, he probably just came out of the shower or whatever. And then he asked me to do, do the scene and then crawl on my belly around it, and it got to a weird place. I remember that humiliation, and I didn't tell anybody. The agents are creeps too. Like, and then trying to get a job, and the casting directors can be, and the people who are the producers, the directors. I mean, it's rampant in the industry. There's not one actress who doesn't have a story. Just before I was really famous, and the next thing I know, I'm in a room with this guy. He's in a chair. And, he's in a comes out in a bathrobe and sits in this chair. And the next thing you know, I'm like, he's asking me to like crawl on the ground and then to crawl toward him. And I just like, it was just this.
If you want to be in the entertainment industry, be careful and speak out.
The public often perceives Hollywood as the ultimate dream factory, a place where creativity and talent come together to produce magic on screen. However, this image is far removed from the reality that exists behind the scenes. Hollywood is not the glamorous, problem-free utopia it projects. It's a business that often prioritizes profit over people.
Nobody ever tells you that, like, when you get to the top, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's just more of that. If you want it, I had ground and scraped and fought to make movies and to make the things that I wanted to make and to sell books and sell scripts. And I was doing all those things. And then I get there and I'm like a broken shell of myself with this relationship that threatened to sort of like truly like wreck my life. And I had done nothing to deserve that. And, I'm like, what is life?
Right, you thought everything that was going to make you happy didn't.
Yes.
Everything you wanted to do, you were doing, but you still weren't happy.
But I was, but I'm a victim. I'm a product, I should say, of these systems that we all survive in, which is, this sort of capitalist-driven, corporatocracy kind of driven way of merchandising and commercializing every thought and fear and moment that we have in our lives, and never giving us a chance to slow down.
Hollywood is notorious for pigeonholing celebrities, forcing them into specific roles and public personas that often do not reflect their true selves. The industry's need to control and categorize its stars means that many celebrities feel trapped in a box, unable to express their individuality or push back against the expectations imposed upon them. This restrictive environment not only stifles creativity, but also damages the mental and emotional well-being of those involved.
I saw my kids and I saw them grown up, and
you really saw that?
Yes, I did. And I saw them asking me, just like a mature grown adult would say, say something very calmly without emotion, like, please don't do this. It was such a startling image that, them saying, we need you, that I climbed up out of that. I pulled myself up and I got out of that. And
was it hard to get out of that?
I mean, thank God I work out, because I mean, if I didn't,
you wouldn't have the strength to get out.
Do it, but I did.
Where?
I know a lot of young people, but you follow me because of the stuff that I talk about on my channel, but I was so pissed. I was like, fuck you, man. And I'm still a little, I'm like, fuck you, man. I'm not. Fuck you. And he was like, okay. Like, he's probably done this 1,000 times with people.
Right. But I almost thought you'd feel like a relief. Like,
no, man.
You know what it is.
You want to put me in a box? You want to put me in a little category, especially a category of like basket cases? Like, fuck you, man. I'm healthy.
That was your initial thought, right?
Yes, dude. I resisted.
The commodification of celebrity culture has reached extreme levels in Hollywood, where personal information is frequently used as a tool for profit. Media outlets and industry insiders often exploit celebrities' private lives, using every detail to generate views, clicks, and revenue.
So when the studio saw this reaction, they realized they had the power to create a public figure who had major influence. And with major influence comes box office draw, which is like a fancy Hollywood way of saying they could get people to the theaters and watch the movies and they can make money. Yay. Money. It's always about money, right? So talent didn't matter as long as the public was eating up the stories the studio created and were giving them all their money, okay? All the studios jumped on board and started creating stars of their own because they saw how well this was working for them. So the golden age of Hollywood was not at all that glamorous, now was it? I mean, this was just a tiny little snippet of a huge ass problem that still goes on today. Thank you so much. From the smoke-filled studio parties where young women were raped to the erasing of all identities as a way to like fully controlling the sleep and diet of their biggest stars. Accountability was nowhere to be found. So if you want to end on some kind of bittersweet note, after Rita Hayworth died in 1987, her agent reflected on a trip they took to Brazil. You see, one day Rita disappeared from the group, like panicked. Everyone's like searching for her everywhere and she was nowhere to be found. But then the phone rang and a voice says, "Hey, I heard you're looking for Rita Hayworth. She's a mile up the road on the beach."
The PBD Patrick Bet David podcast has been a critical voice in exposing the less glamorous side of Hollywood. By diving into the business aspects of the entertainment industry, the podcast reveals how the facade of Hollywood is often far removed from the reality experienced by those within it.
I got a movie I want to put you guys in. Great. Yeah, but I need you to please him right in front of me. And this guy's like, what? Yeah, I need you. And his friend's like, dude, I'm down if you're down. Dude, I want to get a job in a movie. He's like, hell no, I'm out. So he left the industry. I'm done with it. For us from the outside watching in, and you hear stories like Weinstein, or you hear stories of Giffen, you hear stories about these guys. How dark was it back in the days in Hollywood, and how much of this was happening, and how'd you get past it? For a person that wanted to come up and compete, you know, because in politics, you have to do favors to find a way to go up, right? The favors could be different kind of favors that you do. How dirty was it, and how much of that has changed today within Hollywood?
One of the few that made it on talent. But no, I
love it.
No, I didn't get, and none of that happened to me, but I knew people that it did happen to. And because I was working to help kids who were, you know, in slavery and from drugs and sex and stuff in Hollywood, they had run away to be stars, and you know that's what happened to them. They'd get mixed up like that and be used. I heard their stories, and I knew it was common, and I knew that it's just a den of iniquity. And I heard from other people that, you know, everybody knew somebody who had to do that kind of deal.
It's no secret that Hollywood stars often engage in behavior that reflects the darker side of the industry. From scandals to exploitation, big-name celebrities are frequently involved in controversial actions that capture public attention.
He took me to the shit to make me understand this is why I don't be around this shit. And so you seen the orgies, you seen the people that was the stars, and the shit that they was doing, and the smells and the looks in their eyes. And I was, you know, in my youth, I kept a cutlass on me. And so I know I'm walking around holding my cutlasses because you seen people in states of mind that you never experienced nothing like that. I knew people that got high, but they didn't get high and did the shit that I was seeing. And so after I was exposed to it, Flip took me around it about 4 or 5 times. And then he said to me, you see why I don't f with that. You know, you had a group of people that painted their fingernails black, what they call Illuminati now. It was some kind of clique then, and in this clique, you know, we wife swap and all this kind of shit. You can fuck my wife and stand there and watch, and all I seen it. I literally seen all these things, and it was like, okay. And in my youth, I wasn't afraid, but I knew I would have hurt somebody if I was approached. I would have hurt somebody.
The safety and well-being of child actors in Hollywood have been a long-standing concern. The industry has a history of exploiting young talent, often placing them in environments that are far from safe. Child actors are frequently exposed to the pressures of fame at an early age, leaving them vulnerable to manipulation and misuse by those who should be protecting them.
Little People, Big World, and the Duggars, and all that stuff, and I was just kind of watching these families and these kids, thinking, I don't know. And then like horror stories started coming out about child actors. But a lot of it was kind of unknown. I mean, there was Drew Barrymore and stuff like that was a child actress, and then things went really bad. Macaulay Culkin and things went bad, you know? So there's a lot of stuff like that. But now it's all in the news. So like, what do you think about it now? Like watching the people that you grew up watching?
Like all the Nickelodeon stuff that's going on?
Yeah, the Nickelodeon stuff's huge this week.
Over the past few decades, Hollywood has undergone significant changes, many of which have led to an environment that is far more toxic than it was 40 years ago. The increasing emphasis on profit, power, and control has overshadowed the creativity and artistry that once defined the industry. Today, Hollywood is more focused on maintaining its influence and managing its public image than on fostering a healthy environment for its talent.
How much has Hollywood changed the last 40 years? It's insanity what's going on in there. Look, my agent called me it was about 10, 11 years ago. My agent and manager together. They're never in the same place because they're on different sides of the hill there in California. And I felt like it was an intervention, but I walked in and said, we can't work with you anymore. Because I started getting pretty vocal on the internet, and my wife says, they're going to come after you. I said, why? What am I? I'm just saying the truth. This is the truth. But apparently the truth is a horrible thing to say on the internet, as you know. So they said, we can't work with you anymore. He's a Christian, he's a conservative, we can't work with him. And I thought, wow, this is incredible. You guys for decades are the ones screaming for tolerance, screaming for freedom of speech, but as you know, that's all a one-way street with Hollywood. And that's too bad, because I don't harbor that kind of hate and anger that they have towards people like me. I just don't. I have friends that are liberal, friends that are atheists, and we get along, we have a beer, we play golf, and we give each other a hard time, but we're still friends. But it's a different world right now in terms of, as you know, the divisiveness that's gone on.
These exclusive parties are often attended by powerful figures in the industry, creating an environment where exploitation and predatory behavior can thrive. Many young women find themselves victimized at these gatherings, pressured into situations that compromise their safety and well-being.
I was invited to a secret A-list celebrities party. There were things that happened at this party that were so dark and so terrible that I have been afraid to talk about it until now. This goes back to almost 7 years ago when I was living in Los Angeles. I was a struggling actress. I was working as a dancer at a club. At this club, we would get a lot of clients that were high profile, especially in the music industry. On one particular evening, we had this very high profile client come in and request a VIP room. I knew that this celebrity had a preference for Latino women, so when he requested a VIP room and actually requested me, I was quite surprised. And I went to do this VIP with a friend of mine that I worked with, did our job, did our thing, and at the end, he gave us a business card with his assistant's name and phone number. We wanted to party after work that night. I was so not down for this, but the friend that I had done the VIP with told me that she's gone to one of his parties before and that he lives in the Hollywood Hills, has a really cool house. I was really apprehensive on going, but the night was really slow at the club that evening, so we actually ended up leaving early. I was not much of a party person or a drinker, so I was completely out of my element. I was literally there just for the bag. The party at this guy's house was not big or anything. I would say that there were probably less than 30 people in attendance, smoking and doing things that you can imagine are happening at celebrity parties. But one thing I couldn't help but notice is that amongst the people were some very, very young looking girls. At one point I look at my friend and I tell her, hey, like, don't some of these people look like way too young? That the assistant at the club wasn't the A-list celebrity's assistant. This guy is a recruiter. Basically what this person does is goes to parties, goes to clubs, finds girls in a certain age range. And these young girls were being recruited to go to these parties, not to just hang out, but to engage in other unlawful things. This is actually not something completely uncommon in Los Angeles. In fact, this is something that happens a lot. I was completely dumbfounded and disgusted. I ended up leaving that night and never looking back on the whole entire situation until years later I saw in a tabloid an accusation being made against this very celebrity of doing exactly what I just told you guys.
The stories of these parties are often shrouded in secrecy, with victims afraid to speak out due to the potential repercussions. Hollywood's elite use their influence to keep these stories under wraps, ensuring that the darker side of their social lives remains hidden from public view.
Dark things about celebrities you probably didn't know. Because you know me, I love exposing them. Like, we need to know these things. So, as always, with any of my series, follow me for more. Comment if you want me to do more of these or if you have somebody in mind. Elvis has always been a sketchball to me because I've been known about these facts, and apparently not a lot of people know, so let me put you on. So everybody knows these two were married. They got married when they were both of age. That's not the problem. The problem is that they started dating when she was only 14 and he was 24. And she wasn't the only 14-year-old he went after. Like, people who have worked with Elvis or were his close friends said that he had like this golden 14-year age rule. Like, if they were under 14, no, but if they were 14, like, that's what he wanted. There was girls who like talked about how like he would put them on his tour bus or whatever, and like he would try to get them to tickle him and wrestle with him and kiss him. It was really weird. But it was so long ago, so nobody did anything. Also, they started dating at 14, like I said, but she moved in with him at 16 because he said that he liked that she was impressionable and young, so he could mold her into the perfect wife. Isn't that grooming? Then once she had his baby, he lost interest because she was no longer pure.
One of Hollywood's greatest advantages is its control over the media, allowing the industry to shape public perception and suppress negative stories. This control enables Hollywood elites to protect their reputations, manage scandals, and avoid accountability for their actions.
Someone who has many famous friends in the industry, many famous friends who are Leonardo DiCaprio's age. It's well known that not only does Leonardo DiCaprio have the weird trend of dating very young women, but he also has other things surrounding his sexuality that aren't necessarily public knowledge. And I don't want to come across as homophobic or say anything that I don't have direct proof of, but I've heard from multiple people that that is something that they know of Leonardo DiCaprio. This is Leonardo DiCaprio and Brian Peck. Brian Peck is the same person that is in the whole Drake Bells. Leonardo DiCaprio and the things that he does are a telltale case of behavior of someone who was stunted in their youth due to trauma, oftentimes sexual trauma. The reason why we see the kind of weird behavior that we hear about him through his sex life. Because not only does he date very young women, but he has weird things surrounding his being intimate with him that are particular and kind of odd. The reason why we live in such a pedophilic society and culture is because these are the people who are controlling the narrative of our media.
Candace Owens discussed the portrayal of LGBTQ issues in Hollywood during an interview on the PBD podcast, highlighting how the industry often uses these themes as marketing tools rather than genuinely supporting the community. Owens pointed out that Hollywood's portrayal of LGBTQ issues is frequently more about profit and image than about meaningful representation or advocacy.
You know how they treat pedophiles in prison. You know how they treat sexual deviants in prison. So you just say, actually, no, I'm transgendered. That's what's actually happening. Please put me amongst the women inmates who now need to accept. And the fact that the prisons are doing this, they're acknowledging them and affirming them, and that taxpayers are having to bear the expense. I can't even talk about how much that infuriates me. But the second element of this is that there is what's not being spoken about, well, it's definitely being spoken about on my podcast, is the growing alphabet mafia and how they are now adding letters that really just imply sexual deviancy. A man feeling the need to put on panties, a woman's underwear, and you're pretending that that's like a gender or an identity. Perfect example, Sam Brinton, the nuclear energy White House person, who literally was open about the fact that he was a sexual deviant. I mean, wearing heels, lipsticks, into pup play, which if you look into what pup play actually is, you will be shocked at how disgusting it is.
That's it for today's video. Stay tuned until next time.